A question I get asked all the time, which I love, is what book has changed your life? And it's always so hard to answer this question because it's impossible to pick a favorite life changing book. So I thought I would pick my top life changing books and share them with you. If you're going through a time right now where you need a reset, or you want to do a career pivot, or you're looking to just shake things up, here's some books that help me think about my life differently and have actually changed the trajectory of my life. So they're very personal to me, but I hope that they'll resonate with you. Maybe one or two of these you'll be interested in getting yourself. All right. So the very first one is StrengthsFinder 2.0. This is it's a small book. It's an essential book. I think this is a great book to read to know your basic strengths. So I think, interestingly, we often go to school and we study science and math and history, maybe some foreign languages, but we very rarely sit down and categorize our strengths at work, our strengths on a team, and how we're naturally oriented. The reason why I like StrengthsFinder is because it helps you pinpoint exactly what you're good at and then what to do with those strengths. So for example, I'll give you one of my strengths. So my number one strength is achiever. I'm very achievement oriented. I also have communication as one of my top strengths, which makes sense, as well as activator, focus, and strategic. Those five, when I read them, I was like, yep, that's me in a nutshell. And it was so helpful to know those things about myself because it helped me make better decisions about my future. What's great about this is for each of the strengths, they give you ideas for action. They also give you working with others who have that. So I did this with my partner, so I know his strength and he knows mine. It's an incredibly powerful exercise to do with your partner, your team, or just for yourself. Next one, sort of similar vein. So I feel like if you know your strengths, you should also know your love. So The 5 Love Languages, another really great book by Dr. Gary Chapman. This is the 5 ways that we show love. I also talk about these 5 love languages in Captivate. So obviously a life-changing book for me was the book that I wrote. And I liked this book so much that I summarized parts of it into chapter number 8 in Captivate. So if you want to get a little summary of this, you could always open up to that page in Captivate or just go right to the source and find your love language. I love this book because it helps you identify exactly how you like to feel and receive love. Mine is acts of service, and now everyone in my life knows that, and I know everyone in my life's love language as well. Beautiful book, great to read with someone else as well. All right, next one this is a science one. So for those of you who are also science lovers like me, if you want to know how you work, this is incredibly helpful. So I love dopamine. I love it so much that I even have it on my wall. So I love dopamine, and I always understood that it was the pleasure chemical. But what I didn't realize is there's so much more going on. So this book is called The Molecule of More by Daniel Lieberman and Michael Long. And it talks about how our motivation works. If you struggle with procrastination or getting things done, this is a great book from a science perspective on how our motivation and achievement works. Obviously, you heard that my number one strength was achievement, and so I'm very interested in how we do that and how we get things done from the science perspective. So if you're into science, you'll love that one. Okay, this one is old school. Why Men Don't Listen and Why Women Can't Read Maps by Barbara and Allan Pease. Little funny story about this book. The reason why it's life-changing for me is because my mom was reading this book, and I saw it on her nightstand. And without her permission, I was curious about it, so I took it and I started reading it in secret. I think she would have let me read it if I had talked to her about it, but I just thought it was something that was just so adult. So I took this book and I started reading it, and it completely changed the way that I communicate. Because the argument of this book is that men and women communicate differently, and we should know how they naturally communicate so we don't argue against their natural orientations. So I thought this was really interesting. It helped me understand my dad better, my brother, eventually my husband. It also helped me communicate with women in my life differently. So I highly recommend it. It's a really clever book and super helpful in terms of communicating with different genders. All right, let's do a classic. So I love Daniel Goleman. This is Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. This is kind of the Bible for emotional intelligence. If you're looking to dive deep, to think about how you emote with people and how you connect with them, this is the quintessential book on how to do that with others. So I highly recommend this book if you're interested in doing some introspection and looking at your emotions, or if you're feeling like you're not very emotional and you want to get to know your emotions more. This completely opened my mind to the world of emotional intelligence, that IQ isn't everything. Interestingly, I discovered emotional intelligence before I discovered social intelligence. So now, as a career, I teach social intelligence, but actually I discovered first emotional intelligence, which led me to Daniel Goleman's social intelligence. So if you want a bonus book, emotional intelligence, read this one first, then read social intelligence second. Okay, 2 more. I love this book. I'm also a little biased. So this is Hello Fears by Michelle Poler. Michelle Poler is a dear friend of mine. I've done an interview with her, which you can see. She's incredible. And this book is such a beautiful look at how we process fear, and not about being fearless, but about facing our fears and understanding them. I even have little tabbies in this book. I love it so much. Let's just go to a random tab. Let's see what I said. Oh, see, look at this. So here's what I highlighted. More challenges equals more to look forward to. Totally reframes how we look at fear and challenges. It's also a beautiful book. I find this one really inspiring. It's beautifully done, beautifully written. It's so wonderfully designed. She has so many great illustrations. And mostly, her subtitle is Crush Your Comfort Zone and Become Who You're Meant to Be. It helps you find yourself. And Michelle's voice is so authentic and so real. Highly recommend. Last book. Okay, the last book I decided to choose here, I was like, oh, I wanted to pick so many, but I decided a life-changing book is Understanding How We Work. This book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind, it's not very brief, it's pretty thick, but this is going to tell you exactly where we come from and how we work. So I think this is really a game-changing book in understanding our species and who we are as humans, and there's some fascinating history in here. It's a big read, so be sure you have time to dedicate to it. So those are my life-changing books. I have a whole long list going here of all my life-changing books. I wasn't able to include all of them in this video, but if you want to check out that list, as well as I will keep updating it over the years as I read new books, it's scienceofpeople.com/life-changing-books. So be sure to keep an eye on that list and tell me what your life-changing book was in the comments. I'm so curious. I have a rule that if a book has been recommended to me more than 3 times, I have to go read it. So if there's a book in the comments that gets recommended more than 3 times and I haven't read it, I will go read it. So be sure to put it below. Give this video a like, give us a subscribe, and I'll see you in our next video.